Okay, so we are on the screen, y'all are going to see current HIDO as it was approved last, just for talking points. The maps from last week are printed over here, and I can bring them up on the board for whatever y'all want to discuss. I don't know who wants to get started. Anybody has any thoughts for this week?
What y'all talked about last?
We talked about you since you weren't here.
That's a good thing to do. If y'all talking about me, y'all leave somebody else alone. At least 6, 7.
That's right. So you get a break this week. Prepare.
What we talked about last week was land spacing. And
Right.
if land spacing would be a prohibitive factor in not allowing some businesses to go in. And my talking points last week was no, land spacing does not prohibit any business from buying enough property to operate anywhere in the county.
According to that map that she had sent us out.
Any map, you can put whatever figure you want up there, and all the land spacing does is initially targets placement.
Right.
And then it enhances buffering. After that, whoever wants to do something can do it. Might be a little more expensive to do it than not in some circumstances, but it's going to go in. I mean, there's no way outside of having zoning, which that is off the table, not going to have zoning. There's no way to stop anything. It's just a placement and buffering for land spacing. Now, there were some concerns brought up last week about maybe a particular item. I brought up that sawmill. So maybe we talk about some of the entities there a little bit.
As far as what you're classified as.
Yeah, what they're classified, or if there are different tiers for different sizes of business. I don't know if that's something that we talked about, if that can be broke out that way. Where you just discussing down there on the planner, sitting down there enjoying the nice air. Where you draw the line, what size, at what point does a small business, whatever it is, become a large business? And all of a sudden crosses that line into being now higher impact. So maybe there's some discussion there, but I don't know, Rodney, would you have some thoughts on some of this stuff?
I think when you look at this from a realistic standpoint, nobody wants to start a business with intentions of staying a startup for 30, 40 years.
Right.
The idea is to come up with a better fill in the blank and build that, grow that, make it work to a point where either you're legitimately doing something or a bigger company comes in there and says, we need this, and they buy it from you, and then that's just like Mike said a couple of weeks ago. That's your retirement. That's your contribution to society, and we need to find a balance in here before we can encourage startups, encourage the growth that's required, all like that right there, and at the same time offer at least a feeling of protection to the people that's around. Now, I'm getting calls at the house now from Jim Minor Road. And I have said that I believe that piece of property holistically is in Graham's ETJ. Okay. Well, in Alamance County got nothing to do with it. That's right.
Except for my street, that's still in the county.
Congratulations.
I don't know,
But the concern is with all the truck traffic. Now, I can read not well, not fast, but I can read. And when I take the newspaper and see that the people on Cherry Lane have rose up. So fortunately, we don't have to sort this out.
Cherry Lane is no longer the Scott Farm.
Absolutely not. Except for, well, except for the one house.
Anyhow, in reference to sawmills, I can clearly see a difference between Johnny and his little portable porta band that he pulls over at my yard with his half-ton pickup truck, sets it up, and I've got some logs out there. I bring them up with a skid steer, pull them up on the carriage. He saws my lumber out, hooks up to it somewhere else. And size mowers, New South, Canfor, Edwards, Braxton's, you know, a legitimate running sawmill. I see the difference in that. But I think at a point, we're gonna now have to either come up with a schedule, a scale, or some way or another of determining the difference between a mom and pop porta band and a sawmill with a 6-foot blade on it. Or whatever. So, you know, the more we work with this, the more work there seems to be to do with this.
Oh, yeah, just being involved.
So
Keeps them on.
at least for the small sawmill portion, y'all can see the definition that was done in the UDO, and it speaks to temporary portable sawmills without permanent structure are excluded from the definitions that they're excluded from the HIDO.
So that starts with temporary, then you have a small
Johnny.
little mill like when we were talking about that guy on the Teakville Terminal Road. I ain't never been to a sawmill, but that's a permanent structure, yet it's
It's a
just a
pole barn.
small sawmill. You know,
It's a pole barn.
yeah, it's a pole barn, yeah, right, pole barn. So it's more than a portable, but it's not, yeah,
Full
loose
blown.
house or whatever that.
So how would you go about trying to change it and classify it as,
Yeah,
if you say, okay, this is what you can do now, but in 5 years, he says, okay, I want 2 pole sheds.
right, well, that was right on the point too. At what point does it become New South? At what point? Mike made a good point. Well, if at some point he's gonna figure, well, I can't expand no more on this. I'm gonna need this, so what am I gonna need? Okay, I'm gonna need 40 acre, I'm gonna need this. You know, it becomes that kind of automatically. So I don't know. And that's just one example of, obviously, mining and quarrying, you know, you need, that speaks for itself. Racetracks, we kind of know what that is. Asphalt plants, you know, we kind of know what that. Electricity generating facilities. What's the definition of electricity?
So we
generating?
excluded solar farms out of that.
Right, we took the solar farms out to their own ordinance, right?
There you go.
Standalone plant, not similar to the commercial generation of electrical power, then solar, hydroelectric, and wind. So what would that be? Yeah, fossil fuels, okay, but not limited to fossil fuels. And nuclear. Okay. So there's your nuclear plant. It's in the nuclear plant would be, is that what a nuclear plant then would be class 3?
Well, let's see.
The nuclear power. Sharon
I think
Harris,
we,
is it class 3? It might need to be a class 10. or something, I
So
don't
all
know.
of them, let's see here. Do we put nuclear plant in?
But we'd be sure. A coal power plant? Where's the closest coal power plant?
I'll go with the one down in South Carolina.
I don't know, where's the closest coal power plant?
Is, the one up on Baloo's Lake still running?
I couldn't tell you where.
Wasn't that where ain't that Surrey County?
Part of Blues Lake's Rockingham, part of it's, Surrey, yeah.
Say it again.
Part of that's Rockingham County and part of it's not. So yeah, the biggest part probably is in Surrey County.
Wasn't that where the big failure occurred here
The
sometime?
coal ash spill, and that plant was, for all intents and purposes, not really active at the time. They were just monitoring that plant when the coal ash spill happened.
So it's not running.
No,
Not-
it
not
wasn't.
Now, either.
Mm-mm. But I know there's another Duke Power plant up in Rockingham County, but they're not coal.
Is there a coal plant around here that we know of that's running?
Not to my knowledge. I can't think even Orange or South at all.
The only coal thing that I'm aware of would be the power plants at University of Chapel Hill. And it's been some number of years since I've seen us bringing coal in there, so I don't know if it's still
So there's
running.
not that kind of possibility. Okay. What is Duke producing our power with? Sure, not only solar.
No.
Going to gas at that one in South Carolina to
Mhm.
shut down,
Or
or
natural gas or
I thought they had a bunch of gerbils and
something?
wheels running around.
Okay,
Belt.
so is it natural gas is what they're producing, how they produce?
that's what they said on the news. I think about the one
There's
in
several
South
that are, yeah. They may be doing something else, but it's starting.
All right,
A
so
lot of them
you
would
have
go.
A natural gas power plant would be a class 3 in this item.
Yeah, so anything that's not specifically listed is interpreted. And the definitions section, they pull those definitions like legal does out of the land use law book, which is like a nice paperweight for your desk. So there's understood industrial definitions and what things are similar. So that's how they came about some of these.
Do we have any hydro plants still running around here that we know of?
I don't think so. I hate to jump out on a limb, but I don't think
What
so.
about Saks Law that they do anything there?
Well, it's still there, but I don't think them turbines have turned in 30 years or more.
The guy that bought it from Jordan did operate the power because they got into a little bit of a lawsuit about it. But I don't know if he's looking to sell power now, but he was selling power to Duke Power. That's been a long time ago. I don't know if he still is now or not.
In the last 30 years,
Oh, yeah. In the last 30, certainly.
has it been the last 20?
I don't know about that.
Okay.
All right, so. Yeah. So electricity, facility, landfills except inner debris. Now, the inner debris would be like Philippines. and stuff like that.
Stumps, brush, leaves,
Right, right, right. So landfill, we're talking about the county.
trash. Uh-huh.
County, so that would be a class 3. Paper mills we talked about. Paper mills probably wouldn't happen around here, but you know, cement manufacturing, same kind of situation. Waste facilities. What's waste facilities?
Would that be like solid waste?
Let's see here.
Well,
Probably
I
would.
think
That's
it's
a broad-
Stericycle over here is a waste facility.
As it is.
Stericycle.
Yeah.
You know, over
Like
here.
I'm saying, when you say waste facility, that's a broad definition.
So they're referring back to the general statute definition for waste facilities.
All right. So what else is in class 3s?
One, I know we talked a lot, brought it up, did a little bit more digging. I think one that we probably should consider is moving into class 3 is chemical manufacturing. But not just any chemical manufacturing, because the small ones don't really pose as big of a threat as those that are considered to have large bulk quantities, which is outlined as quantities greater than 3,000, basically 6,614 pounds of solids, 3,000
for 792 gallons liquid. Or we can just keep it simple and say based on the Federal Motor Consumer Safety Administration guidelines or Federal Hazard Waste Materials regulations.
The deal with that chemical manufacturers, it could be on some kind of scale.
So like,
Small scale, medium scale, large scale.
or just,
Right now, we just kind of got it in one scale.
mhm. So, and then of course, you know, it gets complicated when you look at extremely hazardous materials, obviously. Especially for planning, you may only have about 1,000 pounds of something extremely hazardous, but it has far-reaching effects if there was a spill. If the fire department has plans in place, we're dealing with that as far as looking at impact.
Things that will, that's what
Mhm.
plans are.
But I think for this, I think it would be a decent idea to start with just your excessive quantities of hazardous materials. And those be class 3 and everything else, not so much. Be kept in class 2. That won't catch all, but it will at least catch those super high impacts, like we have other facilities that are listed as super high impact class 3s.
What we have is a chemical manufacturing facility right now.
We got quite a few. I think we got 19 in Alamance County, but the biggest one is what, Cambro and what's that other? But it's the big one over there, right off of 62. Apollo, that's right, Apollo Chemical. They the biggest, probably the largest one we have. They're probably off of 62.
So they got two sites, or they moved everything over there?
No, it's the same one off of, well,
They got a storage facility in Brown.
yeah, now they do have a few storage facilities. That's the other thing. There's a storage facility in Minute. I didn't realize until it was brought up in the meeting. So they're kind of clustered up around.
What do they manufacture?
That's just Apollo.
They follow that.
Some of everything, but I know their storage facility just storing. I don't know specifically exactly what the chemical is.
Car wash.
And that's another example of started in the carpool and grew exponentially. And okay, so of the 19 facilities, how many of those are inside municipalities like Burlington or Gray?
Thankfully, most of them,
And when you say most of them, you're talking about 10, you're talking about 18.
at least 10. I don't know but every last one of them are. I know the big ones that jump out. If you Google it, they're right around the municipalities, Burlington, Graham.
So they're in
Net area.
municipality or BTJ or something like that, kind of out of our jurisdiction.
Right, for now.
Well, where I was going with it was that's one of them things where you really need water and sewer.
That's a good point. Good point. You definitely would.
That's right. I know, like as
That's a
far
good
as,
point.
the stuff that I'm working on, yeah, they have water, so every manufacturing facility that I'm involved with have water. So they don't work on well, septic.
And here goes back to what I said to start with. When land becomes the premium and the company needs a place to go, they're gonna pay the bill to run the water. They're gonna pay the bill to run the sewer. They're gonna develop the site. And it's gonna come a point where money is not an issue at all. We need a place to go.
That piece from the water, from the sewer,
And if
they
the
improve the roads.
Yep, if the buffers, well, it's gonna be their traffic's coming in. So if the buffer zone is 5 miles, so be it. So I'm not sure if we don't need to be having a conversation about, okay, what do we want? What do we not want here in Alamance County?
Yeah.
I don't think that this subcommittee or this board, that I'm not sure the commissioners are in a position to answer that question. But, you know, when you go with zoning or additional land spacing, or you just fill in the blank, all of that is to protect us. But when the time comes, it ain't gonna make a difference.
We have zoning in place, that's why they have rezoning.
That's right.
You know, so that's not a catch-all. Whatever we do here with, in a class 3 or class 1, class 2, whatever it is, it's not a catch-all for anything. It's not ever gonna prohibit. Only thing we're prohibited is, you know, Russian job or something like that. That's prohibited. That's it. That ain't whatever we decide, we scale in chemical manufacturer or scale in sawmills or change land spacing, increase it, whatever setbacks, you know, it's not going to prohibit anything. People have to
Make somebody spend more money. Just will make somebody spend more money to get what they want.
That's right, and they will.
Oh, yeah, they will.
And they're gonna pass that cost along.
Yeah.
So we make it as hard as we want to, and it's ultimately gonna come back. We the ones gonna pay if we're using that, whatever it is.
Absolutely.
So let's put it on the table. We look, the exercise was to look at class 3s.
Yeah, that was the charge, right? That was the charge. Class 3s was the
I
charge.
don't know if we looked at identifying any changes that we could make per se that would make it tougher.
Just increase the land space.
Yeah, right. And my talking point of 2000 back in the time when zoning was still on the table, and we're trying to, you know, help certain people in the snow camp area when it was just snow camp. But you know, that's now it's gone, right? So I don't know if 2000 is where we're maybe, I think I use that terminology, maybe a little rich, you know. 1,500, stay right at 1,200. I don't know. But again, it's not gonna. You go 1,500. That, I guess we made an improvement in some people's eyes, right? It's not going to change the fact that somebody just needs to
Only
buy
had 300.
an extra piece of property or something. And
And if we go to 2,000, it's not gonna change the facts, it's just gonna make
one,
one.
maybe you have to buy 2 pieces.
Right.
That's all. Yeah.
Well, I have talked to Eric about this, and he's in agreement, at least verbally, to go to 1,500 feet. And he and I, neither one would have a lot of heartburn with going to 2,000. So
Didn't she say 2,000 would be discrimination?
So legal spoke last week on what they have to do if somebody were to contest the ordinance. Say it's not constitutional, you haven't allowed by free right to be able to do these developments. They have to know with good knowledge of why this committee or planning board, whomever, has come to that number, and they have to be able to defend that in court. They've seen the maps and things, and they're not sure that 2,000 is the right perfect number for them to be able to defend. But if y'all choose to go that route, they're going to, of course, they're going to do a review of this before it gets through to any kind of final, and they're going to look deeper into it if that's what y'all choose to go with. Whatever number you choose to go with, they're going to look deep into to make sure that they can defend that.
You know, whatever the number, we can choose not to do anything.
17, we can choose to, we can choose
Those stuff against the
to
wall, foot rolls down.
Stop this subcommittee right now and just recommend no changes to our existing UDO HIDO Division 615.
Well, I'm in favor of putting a little more land space in that stuff. And while we're sitting here, I think that we need to at least consider, while we're talking, having a progressive lot size scale for a potential subdivision. Now, in a meeting, the question was asked, what would you think about having 100 house subdivision there in the middle of Snow County? And rather than saying, well, that'd be great, or that'd be terrible, the answer was, we already got one. And we told where it was, in proximity to cows and what. And we heard rightly that if you build a subdivision and you know to start with, that the more houses you put in there, the bigger the lots have to be, that's wasted land. I'm not going to argue that point. But I would say, if the people in Snow County, I'm not picking on y'all, but if the people in Snow County think they're being punished now with having a rock quarry in their community, put 14,000 new houses over there and families in each one of the houses, and try to figure out which wound to start licking first.
That is.
Growth is going to this side.
I remember when the rock quarry back in 18 was first coming out, the mailman said, it'll be better than a 300 house subdivision over there. So we kind of thought, well, he just. didn't
Starts
want to
300 more
make it.
boxes, he got stuff.
But what he was really thinking was traffic. Rock quarry's got extra traffic too, don't get me wrong, but yeah, 300 extra houses times 3 cars, probably, right? Husband, wife, and one of the kids, right? All of a sudden, yeah, okay, so yeah, that could be problematic too, right? For people to get used to it. Everything you have to get used to at some point. It's a part of growing pains, growth in general, right?
So I guess the question needs to be asked with Snow Camp, do you in fact want to grow on that level? Well,
Little things stay the way they are forever, but that's not gonna happen.
that's right, but there's been a tremendous amount of conversation about the rural, laid back, relaxed, easygoing, slow quality of life that we have. And you put 300 new houses in there, 1,000 new houses, or 10,000 new houses in there, all that's gonna go away. And I'm close enough to Saxby, I do not live in Saxby.
You made that abundantly clear. That one to me.
It shouldn't have ever been questioned, but that it was, I wanted to nip it in the bud, as Barney Fife says, and RAT right then. But I'm close enough to it to know that when you bring a lot of people from a lot of different places into a community, they come with their own ideas. Not necessarily wrong, but different. And when all of a sudden you got 1,000 new people in here with, 600 or 800 new ideas, that right there should change. Getting everybody together on a Saturday afternoon to listen to music, share your garden and vegetables, what you can, crochet, all this kind of that. So it's a great idea. I think getting folks together is a good idea, period. Good to go to church, good to have meetings, good to visit. But you bring 1,000 new people in your community one Saturday afternoon, they ain't walking. They ain't being dropped in with sky hoops from helicopters. And they didn't never cross the first mind in the whole planning session to say, where are we gonna park these cars? That catches me off guard, but it happened. So I think it would be right for us to have a conversation that includes the subdivisions need to, if you got 5 houses or less, or 2 acres. But go over 5, and then go 3
Acres per house or
per house. And get it on up there where if you want to build a big subdivision in there, you're gonna have them on 5 or 8 or 10 acres. And that right there will discourage folks from coming in and putting these, because here's the thing. There are some land developers here in Alamance County, but most of them ain't. And the old snake pit boy, he won't wrong the other night when he said, folks is gonna come in here and dump on Alamance County. But them people is coming in here and gonna put the rock quarry, they don't live here. They ain't paying no. The tax that they're paying in Alamance County is just that's a business expense. They don't have a home here, their children ain't going to graduate from Southern Alamance High School. And they could give a flip less if Russia bombs Alamance County. Well, we'll just have to find another rock hole.
Insurance claim.
I said when I first come on this planning board, we need to stop issuing building permits. And we need to pass a law that says if somebody here wants to build a house, you ought to be able to prove 3 generations been in Alamance County, and you've got to build it out of Alamance County. You got to use a building contract from Alamance County. You got to buy your material from Alamance County. That everything we need is right here. But these folks that want to come in and bring their carpenters with them, where are you working now?
I'm in Durham,
In Durham. Okay.
North Durham,
All right.
Rayburn Industrial.
Now don't hear this wrong, because I know what you do very well. But do you think there's anybody in Durham County could supervise a building of a plant?
Sure. Sure.
What do we say standing out here in the fresh air? Closer to home you work? Okay, well, I'm gonna be done for a little bit or something like that.
So what do you think? What are we doing?
Well, I say we were charged with looking at the class 3. Let's recommend 2,000 feet. Let the legal department sort it out.
somewhere I need to stay. I second that. We vote on it.
There's no vote, but if there's
Okay.
somebody on the committee that would prefer to say something else, that's kind of very, very casual, I guess.
So you're in agreement to that, there. Well, what about you?
I agree. We start there and then they say, nope, that's not possible. We back off.
Okay.
We're, what is legal saying right now at 2,000 feet?
They're not real comfortable. They're not, they haven't done their due diligence research, but they're not very comfortable with that. So I'll give you a complete answer once y'all decided they had the time to do their research.
So, but they do understand that the land spacing doesn't have to come off of one piece of property.
Oh, God, yes.
The point of that conversation last week also was I gave you a map, right? Of the rock quarry where there were purchased of 8 different pieces of property, right? And whether they're actually, you're using like 5 or 6 pieces of property. Okay?
Yeah.
So one piece of property does not satisfy those class 3. So if that was the one thing after realizing that we were taking 2,000 feet or 1,500 feet or whatever it was from one piece of property, that's not realistic either, because you're not going to do a quarry on 40 acres. You're not going to do
Right, that's a
on
minimum.
40 acres. You know, what I mean, it's just not going to happen. Right. So there's going to be some businesses. You could probably do a sawmill on 40 acres. Right?
You could probably do
Probably
depending on the racetrack or something, you could probably do that on 40
Yeah,
acres.
potentially, right. Could do some of those businesses on 40 acres. There's gonna be some that are never fit on 40 acres.
Right.
They're gonna require more. And Yeah, so. I just want, legal form up, barking up the right tree, I guess. You want to be barking up the right tree.
Natalia took notes from what y'all's discussion was last week. So in getting back with her this week, just, they're kind of wanting to see what y'all end up at before they start doing too much work on it.
But y'all do realize 2,000 feet on us half a mile. That's probably. That's half a mile.
Yeah. Well, it's more than half a mile when you put 2,000 feet over here, 2,000 feet over here. It's all-
Yeah, I'm just talking about on one side.
Let me just pull, Bill, I'm gonna pull one of these up.
I mean, I see the GIS all the time. Look here. I don't think they'll go for it.
1,500.
Right now it's at 12, I think.
I don't want to, okay, so the way this is, we have you have a 2-month extension on that moratorium. Right? Okay. But you really only have, really have 30 days because of the way that public hearing and the notification process and all that. I'd rather recommend something that we think is more targeted rather than we recommend 2,000, we come back, no, it's gonna be 1,500. Whatever.
I mean, my gut tells me, but that's just my gut.
I'd rather come up with something now, even though I know the 2,000 figure sounds great. And like I said, brought it up originally as a talking point, but if they're already looking negative at, then
Well, she said look at negative 15.
Well, let's do 15 instead of 2,000 on this one.
Yeah, I think 15.
well, that one there, that's the map I gave you.
Yeah, this is the one that you gave me.
Yeah,
The other one actually has more interest to it. Let me put that one up, has more around it.
yeah, I'm sorry, I just was swamped today. Tanya.
I couldn't read the numbers on the ones you sent. It got blurry when I had to load up, so I couldn't work with that one yet. But I got the wrong thing here. Hold on.
Figure out what it's at.
That's up there.
I could shoot 410 that far.
That's up in your neck of the woods.
Yeah, it was about 5,000, when that's going to Best of South Fork, that's called back to the southern. And just so y'all know, in about a month, Greenberg, Chapel Hill, and Best of South Fork, will be a 4-way stop.
Yeah, I heard.
Well, according to the thing, it's gonna be next month.
Not one call. I got that one time. Never a call. I like to talk to DOT about that decision. It's stupid. Don't make it run more.
I agree with you. Yeah, it's fixing to be a 4-way stop. You can stop on Greenberg, Chapel Hill Road.
Well, Holman Mill would be a far better intersection.
Well, I agree with that.
You can't see over the hill.
And during daylight, I come through there at dark in the morning,
Yeah.
right? So that's okay. But when it gets start getting, you're trying, you want to make a right there, you don't know what's coming up over that
They
hill.
would have had it yesterday, but they fixed the pay one of them.
I would say that would have been a better place to put a 4-way stop on the middle. I mean, I tell you what, I didn't like the idea of the 4-way stop at Snow Camp, but I tell you what, it's really been a big improvement. It is a lot
One
safer
at the restaurant
than the 4
or the one that you stole.
at the store. That's a lot safer. It is.
Well,
So there's.
when I've been on,
Yes.
when I've been on Greenberg Chapel Hill Road, they flying up that Greenberg Chapel Hill Road.
Yeah.
And that's what they're trying to put in those stop signs where they slow people down. And right now, if you make the left at the restaurant, go up to the store, you gotta stop. Now you have to go down the road another 2 miles and stop again.
All right, so what is that? Was that 2,000?
That's 2,000.
Okay. So you got that house there on the,
We got a house up on the
Yeah.
northeast, and then you've got a couple of homes on the really southwest side.
well,
down here.
that there is barn, but next to it, yeah, that's barns.
So let's see.
Now, you go up where the yellow dot is, there's a house there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they've got this address down here, so it looked like there could be a dwelling on that one.
Carol, that was interesting because.
You got a couple things going here.
All the farm stuff is in like a family thing, but these 3 pieces here, she kept in her name on. So, but yeah, now that's owned by Carolyn Henshaw, right?
Carol now.
Or, well, Kathy Griffin, the one that she highlighted.
Oh.
Oh,
Yeah, that's owned by the Griffin.
yeah, Kathy.
One of the first one put up was Carol Land. That's a
Yeah.
big block of land.
Oh, yeah, she owns 3 pieces.
Oh, it killed my buffer. Hold on a minute.
For business,
So
You want to do 1,500?
1,500 probably is probably more realistic.
So it gets away from all.
I took out the barn, the house.
I think you got away from all of them, yeah.
So,
Well, that's only 1/10 of a mile. Difference between 500 and 1,500.
That would be 300 feet more than what's in the current ordinance. Let me share this, hold on.
the Griffins are gonna have to get whoever buys that, if they buy it separately, they're gonna have to get it right. It's kind of landlocked, and it's all trees. And that is sitting up behind, National Park. That's an example.
It's a example, yeah.
That avoids all the protected facilities right there on that particular piece.
Well, I think it would be right for the planning board, when they make their decision one way or the other, to instruct legal to look into this from the perspective of, can we defend this? Can they defend this in court at 2,000 feet? And if the answer is no, check it at 1,900, check it at 1,800, and find out what the maximum spacing number is that they can defend, as opposed to saying, we can't defend it at 2,000 feet. And then take 30 days to go, well, check it at 1,900, and then 30 days later, oh, we can't do that.
All right, so if we do this, Tanya, what is the time frame that legal can look at this? I mean, it's probably not the biggest thing on their plate right now, but
It's not, I've got a lot of other
can
things
they
on my
have an
plate.
answer by next Thursday's?
I don't know if a week will do it. Normally, did they take a little more time to look in stuff? And that's what y'all want to do. 2 weeks might be reasonable, but what I can do is get with Natalia in the morning and get y'all an answer on that, on how fast she thinks she can look at it, because she's looked through some of this HIDO just preparing for last week's meeting, so it's not brand new to what she's looking at. And we can say we'll get some type of answer, whether it be we need a little bit more time or whatever by next week's meeting, if you want me to do that. They're going to use our GIS department.
Work our way down.
Yeah, I mean, before you get it to planning board, that's a good time to go ahead and run it through legal. So y'all get there with the confidence.
Would we be wrong to, as a subcommittee, ask you to ask her to go ahead and start looking at this?
Yeah, that's
Or does that
perfectly fine.
request need to come from the planning board?
No, she told me that whatever came out of your meeting, I can give her some instruction and they'd be glad to take care of looking at whatever y'all treated same as any planning board request. It doesn't have to wait till it gets there.
If that be the case, why don't you let her go ahead and start looking, and maybe by next Thursday night when the board meets, we can say, okay, well, we can defend 1,700 feet.
Okay.
Or we can defend 1,500 feet, or maybe we go from 12 to 13.
That's fine.
Whatever.
Well, she'll need information from our JS department planning stuff, and we'll work with her and see where how far we can get by next Thursday.
Okay.
So now, so that's the land spacing side of it. Did we want to address any of the actual items? Like the sawmill or not in class 3, but should some of it be in class 3? Do we want to get into that discussion any further, or just save that for another fight, another day?
So Tanya, does the state give any guidance as to at what point a sawmill goes from a hobby to a business?
So I would have to check into what their definitions are. I know they've rewritten some of their stuff. And they follow that industrial land use book that we all have. So we'll have to check into theirs and see what their definitions are now.
Well, I guess my question ultimately is, do we need to spend a whole lot of time drumming up ideas here only to find out that the state has already made a ruling on it?
Well, we can drum up an idea, run it through legal, and they'll check statutes and court cases and make sure what we want to do is something that's okay and it would fly if it was challenged. Because even, the state's levels of quarrying and all kinds of stuff are very different than ours. So I expect to see it's going to be kind of odd compared to what we have. And we are entitled to put more restriction than the state is. The minimum is what the state says.
Well, at the end of the day, I don't want Sizemore sawmill back there behind my house, between me and Mary's Creek. Wouldn't fit, but if it would, I still don't want it back there. But if the guy that lives behind me wants to get a little porta van, play with it. I think we need some clarification as to which.
When they apply for a business license, do they have to say how big they gonna be or wanna be, or?
Business license is down in tax, and they've restricted them back in 2017 from asking too many questions. They don't even license some things anymore that they used to. So that law looks real different, and I'm not sure how many questions they get to ask on that.
They mentioned the one down in North Chapel, about the one right there at Saxville. That's firewood. Right there on the.
Oh, Steve Myers.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's one for you. Does having slabs and lumber that's not usable for brush, laps I'm talking about, slabs and laps hauled in there, and you got a cutoff saw on it and a little conveyor, and you cut and split firewood, push it up there and load it on a little dump trailer and deliver it. Does that constitute a sawmill, or is that a firewood operation? I'm talking Steve Myers.
Yeah, I hear a lot of.
It takes it all the way down to wood chips, yeah.
I've heard that they're like neighbor,
Well,
he's
I'm
operating
sure.
right there, right there. So, I mean, where's that jurisdiction? I don't know.
I've been trying to get my head around how you go in where they clear cut a piece of property and take a grout and pick the laps and the brush up and put it on a machine that would jar it enough to get most of the dirt off and cut firewood out of it and conveyor it up. Because every time I ride down the road and see a piece of clear cut property and then hear somebody talking about being cold, I'm like, I ain't took the time to work it out. But I know there's a lot of people that would love to have their property cleaned up after the timber's cut.
Yeah.
Anyhow. So that probably would come in a sawmill operation.
I think our definition is so broad, it probably would.
Okay, so you got a one-man operation here. He doesn't have any employees.
And he's got a structure over top of it to keep rain on.
Constitute sawmill, don't
Well, I mean, when they leave it up, and I'm not picking her, when it comes down to what the administrator decides, or the face up, prima facie, my first impression, I won't say how that, I'm not approved by it, but I do not want to see y'all eliminate a small little guy. I know too many people here running sawmills with the 6-foot blade that you're talking about right around Rock Creek Road. Two-man operation. He's on
Is that where
5 acres.
Mason
He's
is?
on 5 acres.
Is that where Mason is?
Get down, Rock Creek, go by solid size formers and go by halfway clear down Bill Road. He's on the left. You don't even know he's there. He's not bothering nobody.
Is that Mason Wood? Okay.
But, I'm just concerned, that's the only reason I'm up there tonight. Sawmill, I mean, when it's like you pick up a bunch of mud, throw against the wall. You say sawmill, man, that's, you cover
That's-
everything.
What I said a while ago, that's throwing stuff against the wall and see what
Oh.
sticks. I mean,
And you shouldn't say bandsaw, because a lot of people that's got a little bitty sawmill like that guy, for why before he teaches school, was married Sandy Oakland was married too. He runs a sawmill today, he teaches school, Southern Alabama, Pete Martin. He's been running a sawmill for 30 years behind his house, and it ain't no bandsaw. I mean, it's a nice sawmill, he's done lots of lumber for me, and you wouldn't know he's there. He's on probably less than 3 acres. And, but my, you know, I'm not trying to tell you how to do business, but I mean, I'm just concerned when y'all say sawmill. And a lot of more people up here concerned if y'all make it one big thing, I guarantee you. And, you know, I think the approach I gotta take is like acres, 5 acres, 4 acres, 3 acres. If you want to put a giant sawmill on 3 acres, that big, but you know, you're not gonna do it, you know.
Well,
The acreage, I think, is gonna solve y'all's problem.
Pete and all these other people are not hauling logs in tractor trailer
They do
loaded.
custom work, like me, I bring log over there, they saw it, maybe whatever timber I need.
Yeah.
That's what I do. If you put them on a certain lot size, you're gonna limit it right out the gate, ain't gonna be tractor trailers coming in, because they can't get in there. You know, so it's common sense to me, you know, make it 3 acres, 5 acres, and they can't operate on no more than that. And then it gives them an enforcement tool, and that's just me, but.
That makes a lot of sense on how you classify something. But your man could start on a half acre.
But he can't grow if you got it fixed.
But if he owns 5, he can start on a half, but if he owns 5, we said 5 acres would be small sawmill. Anything over there would be class 3, that he could grow to his 5. I think is it Friendship Rock Creek that turns in front of the school off 62?
Friendship Patterson.
Friendship Patterson Mill. There's a boy about halfway down here on the right coming from the school. His name's Mason Wood. It's got a little small sawmill. Pasture.
Scott boy on 54, you know, and Steve is retired from City Grant, he's got one down there, and he does custom work, and he ain't got no bandsaw. He got a big blade, and I guarantee it, nobody in Swift complain about him, he's in Swift. I guarantee she ain't a fuck off. They people, I mean, little sawmills, hey, I'd rather have a sawmill than ever have a lot of other things going on.
Well, you'd probably rather have a sawmill than a neighbor than 100 neighbors.
I don't like people that way.
We understand.
Sound like my nephew. Sound like my nephew. He's assistant manager of one Family Dollars. He's smart off one of the employees. She said, "You don't like people to eat some dope." Sure don't. She said, "You're in the wrong business." She said, "No, they pay me to work here and work with you. They don't pay me to like you." Oh, I don't like people.
All right.
In a
so-
brief search, I'm not finding the state has a definition or does a whole lot with sawmills, but we'll dig deeper. None of their permits actually mention sawmills. So we'll see if we find anything else.
Okay, well, just kind of a consensus around the horn here. Would we be in agreement to it not being an official sawmill if it's on less than 5 acres land?
Yeah, I like the idea of the land thing. Instead of trying, instead of trying to say, okay, no, you can't grow your business at all.
Just be clear up front. that,
You can grow
you
your
want
5
to,
acres.
That's fine, but you
I
want to
like
have a
that
place
idea.
for it to grow.
So we had a 5 acre, let's see, our class, even our class 1 has a minimum of 10 acres. So we weren't addressing small businesses with this.
No, where you put that,
Yeah, we weren't addressing small business with, and it never did. I mean, from the 2006 to the 2011, to even when we revamped this in 2020, it never addressed small businesses. And that was one of my premises when we were talking about land development in snow camp, was this tiered effect based on how many this, what size for here, whatever that, and what your land spacing would be or whatever, right? That's what the premise was all about.
so it just as
Small
y'all read.
sawmills falling through the cracks like this, right? You're right. We're looking at big stuff. We're thinking big. And that was if anything, that was my thought process, whether we were going zoning or no zoning, was mom and pop businesses, small businesses in that southern Alamance County, keeping that homegrown feeling, as you had mentioned earlier, homegrown.
So in that definition right there,
Mhm.
where it says temporary mobile sawmill without permanent structures are excluded from this definition. It then go on to say, unless it's not 5 acres or less.
Right, I'll put that language in there just as you did the,
They can put structure up top of it.
you can word it however you want to exclude.
It's a structure.
This is just a county ordinance and nobody else, I mean, legal's gonna look at it, but nobody, the state or anything can tell you can't do that. You meet their minimums of regulation and you can do whatever.
What is considered permanent?
So if, I don't think we
a-
have a definition of permanent in here.
A footing dug and,
Right.
a pole shed.
Yeah, I mean, you can go
Considered
back and
permanent
reference building code for permanent structure, but if you end up in court and you don't have a definition or explain what what you're saying, you go back to Webster's definition. Yeah, we don't have a permanent definition.
Most sawmills really, the guy out in his yard that's gonna do it on less than 5 acres is not got a footing dug and built a permanent.
Puts a pole barn.
Puts pole barn on as
Pole barn
permanent.
up.
If you can't move it, they consider it.
Which, to me, it's a pole
You have a
shed,
footing, if you just put poles in the ground. you ain't
put poles in the ground and it's a tin on top of
They're
it.
gonna rot away before you think that.
Right.
Yeah, I guess the way I look at it is, if you can't move it, it's permanent.
Well, that's
You
just
can't roll
like,
down the road with it, it's permanent.
and that's just like it's zoned.
Right.
If y'all remember, you know where the cutting board used to be when it was down there on 62,
Mhm.
where Biscuitville is now, whatever, the bank. There used to be a house sitting right there beside it.
Yeah.
Now, you thought that that would have been a permanent structure.
What the house?
Yeah. the house. Sitting on the concrete foot, had the brick veneer on it.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, it's about a half a mile from me now.
That's relocated.
Yeah, but it was
It
considered
was.
permanent there, and it's considered permanent there by even y'all's own definition.
They just,
You're kind of getting off base.
yeah, they
Well,
figured out a way to
no, what the
relocate.
point's going in here is, you say permanent, you can't move. Well, that's not a true statement. It can be moved. It just takes a lot of work to move. And that's the same thing with this zoning. We
Maybe
come
we
in here
say-
and zone all Alamance County. And we're gonna have a feeling of protection, but when the people wanna spend enough money, we ain't protected. The most money's gonna win. But we took a paintbrush, it was 4 feet wide and painted the whole county. And everybody, and me and you's on the same page here, everybody's being punished with what you can't do. But if you spend enough money, then you can. And that's why I'm opposed to it.
It's just me, but I think having a covering, I don't see an issue with a covering. Because I want to cover anything, even if it's especially if you're gonna spend money on it, so I want.
I got a 10 by 14 building in my backyard, I can't move. I mean,
Well, I can.
You know,
well, I'm sure somebody can.
Uh-huh.
The big difference between having the tractor sit out in the yard, and tractor sitting underneath that shed, right?
Right.
even my,
Keep the tractor.
I got to build a pole shed in my backyard now to cover my tractor up because storm tore up what I had.
All right, so are we addressing then other entities like sawmill or chemical manufacturing at this juncture tonight? Don't know where we're at with this.
if we do anything with sawmill, piggyback on what you were saying, adding the land piece to it, but I would take away. So. I would take out the permanent structures piece. To that bottom sentence. Because I don't really see it necessary. Why is it? It doesn't really matter.
Still cutting out all the garage businesses. I hear y'all talk a lot about garage businesses, the garage businesses. What if the garage man that started a sawmill had 10 acres and he wants to have a little sawmill? Bang, he's out of business. He's gonna have to go back and find a new job. And that's the only thing I took out of all of this tonight. I mean, you're still cutting out the little man. Any way you put it at 5 acres. I mean, small little sawmill, there's some guys they have, you don't need more than that.
So is the issue with the sawmill the noise it makes? I guess I'm just trying to figure out how it made class 3. What is that what the issue is?
Right.
Well, I
A
think
large
so.
sawmill, you have the large trucks coming in, there's a lot of truck traffic, there's activity, there's additional, there's a lot of things, lighting.
Nuisances.
It's right, it becomes that.
But it's the
Yeah,
bigness
yeah.
that we really
in
worry
an
about.
area. That's why they're in class 3, and then you try to, space them somewhere and then give them some buffering. And so, that's the point of why they're in class 3, but, if it's encompassing, then the little mom and pop businesses, that's kind of where we're talking about, trying to break out mom and pop or small.
I was supposed to get a long thought.
Mom and pop
You don't
is
do 10 acres or so.
long-term knowledge.
Say they had 10 acres
Smaller
at their
scale.
house on it and didn't want to chop up the land for the back and they want to have 10 acres. And they're gonna have to go and chop their land up, make it all ugly instead of just keep it one big square. So now man can't even have his business run. And I just hear y'all, we are just want to protect the small man. I mean, that's still hurting.
What do you
Because that's
think?
saying you're gonna have to run water and sewer and everything to get up to the next level, and then you're just making him where he can never.
What do you think, Tanya, about the sawmill where it says temporary or portable sawmills are excluded from this definition?
Mhm.
And just take without permanent structure. Just take without permanent structure out of that sentence. What's your opinion of that?
That's what I.
That's not gonna be a big deal at all. I don't think legal is gonna have an issue with that. That's just, if this committee desires that, I don't think anybody's gonna have an issue with that.
Well, I just think take without permanent structure out, and then that way,
Portable,
we won't put a shed over.
a portable sawmill would be.
Here again, depending on
What you hook on the back of your truck.
they all portable.
They all can be moved.
Yeah, they all come from the foundry. I think about them orange wood miser. But they got like a 16-foot bed on them, and you got a gas engine on. And you get them and you got the clutch on
Right.
and the whole thing.
That's.
The saw runs back, log blade still in the saw runs back forth.
And I would
480
consider-
3-phase power,
When Mr. Eyes was down 49, his will not be considered portable, no way, shape, or form. It's run off a tractor PTO. And, I mean, it's old school and they still operate and, to me, you start slicing hairs, you start saying portable because it comes down to somebody making the final call that what's considered portable.
I mean, that's gonna be anything
It
that we
has to be.
decide, whether it's land size, portable, whatever.
Wasn't it a double O freight?
I think so.
And didn't he pull it with a 671 Detroit?
Oh, yeah.
I would consider.
But I
But
guarantee
it
you,
wasn't
if the
made
average
there.
person, like from up here in the city, went down and looked at it and said, that ain't portable. Because look at it, I would say, you can't move that too easily. Like you're talking about the house, you can move anything.
Yeah.
But, legally, I don't know, that's all, you're not moving that over here to a job next week.
Right.
That's how I looked at it. But he was a small sawmill. That's the only problem I got when I start throwing sawmill out there. You just encompassing the little guy that might not ever be. All these sawmills I've called out, only one of them's had a sign up next to the road. That's the Scott now, 54. All these other sawmills don't have a sign. They're not having
Is he
signs.
in Kelton, Kirkpatrick's old house?
Yeah.
Okay. So he's the wood chuck.
Which,
Okay.
he's the only person got a sign, what I'm talking about. I'm talking about 6 people. And they're all just word of mouth type thing. It's a side job for them. They got a full-time job. But I just, I'm like, Ken, why you gonna crush this little guy for picking up some spending money or put his kid to college or something? It's not right. And all of that, but I think y'all missed the point about the HIDO. The HIDO was like, which he's talking about, high impact, being a nuisance to people. It's still a guy running with a sawmill, he ain't a nuisance. Nobody's complaining about it.
Until they do.
There's
And
always
nobody's
something.
complaining about Sizemore because they've been there for all the time, but they're out of compliance on every level.
No, but you do have idiots like people that bought houses in front of a speedway and then complain to try to get them shut down. Wait a second, you bought there, looking at the racetrack.
Your mail comes to 307 Racetrack Road.
So you're always gonna have some idiots trying.
Yeah, well, we got racetrack road down here on 4th, now they ain't got no racetrack on it.
Well, don't tell nobody, because they'll be up here protesting that they don't have a racetrack. Like that. So,
Right there before you get to Belmont, on racetrack road, turn to the left. Go up the hill.
Just for my notes, did we as a committee decide to take that language out, or was that just on the table?
The permanent structures piece.
Yes.
We did around people on it, but I agree with permanent structures. Not being necessary there. And what they don't have, it's still, they still should be.
They gonna have some structure.
Couldn't you separate it by board feet, saying, find some figure that would be impossible for most
Yeah,
small
you
sawmills?
do go to the
you
same
could,
thing.
but the problem with that is when you put them words on a piece of paper,
Yeah, enforce
somebody got to quantify it, and then you got to enforce it. That's. It ain't wrong out here.
I'm just thinking outside the box.
Sure, yeah.
Right, so you want, on sawmills, I mean, then you could go back to, and open up a whole can of worms, I mean, a lot of these facilities that if it's, can fit on 5 acres, then, what's the setback on 5 acres? What's the land spacing on 5 acres? Does it go to a class 1, not 10 acres? Now it's 5 acres on this entity. I mean, where do we start?
Well, I think, Mike's been over here hammering his one nail all night long, and he ain't wrong. But at what point does a sawmill become a heavy industrial use? Now, clearly, Edwards, Braxton, Sizemore, New South Canfor, whatever you want them there, Mount Hermon, beside the church. That would be, it would be HIDO worthy all the way around. And if it hadn't been there for, as long as that mill been there, like 75 years or more.
Long time, the people that work there, glad it's there too. I saw a lot of business people got that money from there.
But, yeah. And of course, we talk about Bennett Hatton. Well, who's the maintenance guy up there?
His son,
Gentry. That's right.
he's made it there too.
And then if we put the word larger in front of sawmill, then the definition of what is large.
That's all. I mean, you can just go on and on and on.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we don't really want that in court
Correct.
for them to figure it out.
And it ain't gonna make no difference to Sizemore because they're gonna be exempt grandfather or whatever we do, because they're already there.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
But the question is, do we want another one? That's where the question.
When it comes to my office and somebody's asking for it, is 5 acres okay? Say, no, y'all go ahead. There's no rules on that. Is 8 acres on, well, wait a minute, or no, that's okay. Where do y'all want to draw the line that you want something done about it or you don't want something done about it? Is kind of where what we're tasked with doing.
Well, I think for tonight, we can have a consensus that, well, I could have a consensus that across the board, if we look at all the sawmills in Alamance County, I think that we're spending a whole lot of time unnecessarily talking about it. Because in Edwards over there, ain't they in Randolph? They just in the edge of Alamance,
No, they're
but they're on the line.
they're close.
No, they're pretty cool ways now.
Yes, they're close. You go in Randolph
Yeah, cross
Road,
that.
but then you cross back over in Alamance for quite a little bit.
Now, they are not the old Aldrich Daniels mill. This is a different, one. Is that correct? Or are they the old?
No, they're across the road from Aldrich. He's still in business. He does totally different things.
Hold on, I'll get that pulled up.
All right,
You said Braxton.
Braxton, he's on the mill. Chris. So we got Sizemore, Braxton's, and Edwards. And in the Alamance County, bands and everything, reckon a couple of hundred. But there's a
But really, that's what we hear my complaint about.
There you go. It's into Alamance County. It'll finish loading in a minute. It's got a lot to do.
They ain't on 10 acres.
It's all 49 and then.
Oh, God, no, let's see.
How many acres they?
They're 86 acres.
Oh, used by half of it.
But I mean, look at their trees and stuff. Their foliage, except for on the left side there, seems to be pretty thick.
That's a creek, right? Right across from that Rodney is,
Oh, it's
Gene Aldrich's
Dave's.
place.
Right.
Across from.
Dave's. Dave's.
There's your creek, yeah.
Oh, we go all the way around. That's why they stopped.
That's why he stopped. Yeah, he can't cross it without Army Corps of Engineers saying so.
It's a great man. 100.
Yeah, they can get in the bridge, they can design a bridge.
So what is,
He's got
what's
something.
the area that their sawmill is?
What they're actually operating on?
Yeah.
Let me see what I can do here.
Or we can just do the creek boundary and see what that is.
I'll do that.
You probably had that in the old zoning map that.
So the two different operations.
Probably.
across the street. Yeah, there's two right across the street.
This is rough. 34 acres.
So they got 50 that they're not using.
Yeah. Or about. That's a pretty good size operation.
They were to expand, they would have to come up with new items.
That's, right, they're supposed to, but.
Yeah.
We kind of went back with Ben on that Philippines deal and then we thought we could use the old HIDO on that, but on Philippines.
Yeah, because Philby got that front half approved back in, was it 17, 16, something like that, under 2011 ordinance. But when he came back, the interpretation was this is new, so he comes under new ordinance for the back half that he wanted to do.
Yeah, and being that he was like a class one or. class
Yeah, he
two,
is.
right? Yeah,
Mhm.
Class one, so we felt that it was fine. 25 feet. There you go.
He made it through. He did good. Everything
That's good.
got satisfied with him. There you go.
I know that one of the things is we're gonna float, we decide 2,000, is let the legal department pare it down to, but we want to make sure that they don't pare it down no more than what it is right now.
Right. I would say start at 2,000, get to 1,500. If they still give you the go, just say, okay, just don't waste more time.
That's good. And then we talk a lot about the sawmills now and the property. We want to address that. We want to put a footprint on it, we might call it. Do we want to say there's 5 acres, or do we want to put them in class 1 and it's 10 acres moving forward?
I think 10 acres would be a starting point. Because. But as we just saw, 30 acres, build a huge operation. Yeah, I think
right necessarily, they wouldn't write it, they were on 30 something, what'd you say it was 30 something? Yeah, they really didn't meet the 40 acres. If it was
New class 3.
Okay, so what about this? If it's a little sawmill like that and it's on less than 10 acres, then it's not a sawmill. But if it's on 10 acres or more, then we call it sawmill. How does that smell to you?
different definition for that kind of
Yeah,
operation.
because it's legal, and Tanya know more about that. I'm just saying, I'm just up here to protect the little guy. That's all. I have never, no intention of having a sawmill myself, so I don't have any dog in this son. My son definitely ain't gonna want a sawmill, feel like splinters. And, I'm just up here, and for the same reason I was up here from first night I came up here, was to protect people. And I'm kind of, and pick me, they're kind of their watchdog, man. That's on the beat, their watchdog. And, I don't know, sawmill.
Okay, so if it's gonna be less than 10 acres, so we don't call it a sawmill anymore, so what do you call it? Wood processing facility?
Okay, y'all painting the pig is what y'all are doing. It's still the pig. We can put some language in there. It's still a sawmill at less than 10 acres, but it's excluded from any HIDO enforcement.
Exactly.
Well, legal see if that'll stand there.
All right, so instead of 5 acres, we're gonna do 10.
Yeah.
All right,
You want to take that permanent structure part of that definition.
Yeah, I
I
think
mean,
that,
they could have a permanent structure.
for the temporary ones, y'all mean?
yeah, the temporary.
I think if you scale it to less than 10 acres, and that's going to exempt all that.
Right. Okay,
It's big.
Whether that stays in there or not is irrelevant.
so less than 10 acres exempt from this
Right.
6.5. Got it. All right, well, that's simple enough.
Yeah, pretty much.
And they may reword that, not to say less than 10 acres, but maybe say is enforced of operations over 10 acres. It may go the other way. We'll see. We'll
Now
scratch
you tell
something up.
Pete Martin and all them other folks that they're not really legitimate sawmill workers because they don't have 10 acres.
They're still salt.
Still a hot.
All right, so less than 10 acres or more than 10
More
acres,
than
that's
10.
how you can boundary that. Okay. All right. All right, so we covered that, the land spacing, we covered sawmills, and the only other thing that Anthony brought up was the chemical thing. Want to talk more about that?
I mean, I would say,
Or is that regulated more by the state?
well, not as far as what you can build. I know what's regulated by the state is if a chemical plant comes in, they have to have a, almost basically a disaster plan approved by the fire. Haynes Group is involved in that, and they're reporting, they're required to report anything over 10,000 pounds or 750 gallons of any hazardous material to the state and to the local county. Tier 1 or Tier 2 report. So, but what it doesn't say is if you have methyl bad stuff, it's take out no count. If there's one incident, it could that be built right there. There's no regulation that says it can't. It just says they have to have these plans in place, and that Marshall Payne has to, his office has to be okay with it, have a plan in place, and the fire department is aware what's in there, what their plan is, so they'll know how to respond. So there's state guidelines, yes, and I think it makes it clear. But the question is, do we want to regulate where it can be put? And I know what the defense is going to be. We have municipalities right now that's doing a whole bunch. So obviously, they're taking measures in place and they put it in the middle of the city. So why do we need to put additional or prevent it from going into the
Right
county?
now, it's in a class 2, so you got 10 acres, you got 500-foot land spacing, which is not really that important, and 150-foot setback, so that means that they, you know, have some kind of buffering around the building and 100-foot streams, if there is a stream, you know, that something could lead, you have stormwater protections and stuff like that, but maybe we don't need to address anything with more than chemicals.
Yeah, I think the only reason why I brought it up because it's saying only, like if you look at your natural resources, your streams, et cetera, it's not that far away. So if it was to be any type of incident, facility that held large quantities, that would be a huge issue. That's not far enough away. That's the only, one of the reasons why I brought it up.
The fuel bulk storage, now that would be something like gasoline, fuel.
What do you think?
Oh, wait, the one in Greensburg,
LP, right? So
What's the definition?
the one in Greensburg?
Tank
Oh,
farm?
that's a big-
that's tank farm, right?
Mhm.
That's gasoline.
If you control fine chemical manufacturing, what definition do they put to that?
We use that industrial definition coming out of the legal book for land use. Because that was straight legal department put that thing together right there.
Storage facilities. I didn't see listed there. Class 2 or 3.
Oh, let's see. I don't know if there's something else in here. I'm just looking through.
But for now, I think we could probably table it to see. I would probably just, we have the resource, I would prefer to see what we can get back from fire marshal's office, because there may be enough things in place already, but we don't need to address it right now.
Well, and I'm still gonna come back to the absence of water and sewer.
Correct.
So I wouldn't say that's on the front burner.
Right.
So chemical manufacturing, address that. That's okay. Sawmills, we've already addressed that. That's the thing. Land spacing, I think we're chopping into this. How do we address, you brought up residential lot size?
Yeah.
That's
I
something
want
we
to leave
address,
that alone. If you want
address that as some of issue down the road or something. That is what, 6.9?
I'm getting there. So I'm that fast. There. Oh, that's watershed stuff. Hold on. Your normal. There you go. 6.9.4. But that's, hold on. I just gave y'all setbacks, not lot size. The watersheds, there's nothing that we can do to that. State requires those. The non-watershed area is what we can do about. But just when we talk watersheds, I'm not sure everybody knows exactly how that's working in the county. It's pretty overwhelming when you look at it. So I'm gonna share that too. Leave that up there. So let me get further zoomed out. The only real part of the county that doesn't have watershed is, you can't hardly see it down here, and you've got Jordan Lake watershed that's not on this map. And they have buffer rules that cover pretty much, you about here it stops and covers the whole rest of the county all the way north through even Rockham County. So when you have watershed restrictions, this is what we're talking about, that there's not a whole lot that's not got some kind of watershed on it in the county. The Jordan Lake is a buffer rule requirement, which is streams, not lot sizes. But a lot of our area is already restricted in lot size just because of these watersheds.
Everything around Jordan Lake.
And they're rewriting Jordan Lake. They're working on these watershed things. This stuff can change on me real fast and we get to just comply.
So that's already requiring at least 2 acres everywhere, right?
Your critical area is 2 acres and your balanced watershed is 1 acre.
So how did that, well, you just over, how did that neighborhood 1 acre, 150 acres, 100, or 110 acres, 100 acres and 110 houses, how did that happen if it's gotta be a minimum of 2?
Would only be a minimum of 2 in the critical watershed. That balance watershed there would be 1 acre. And there's some in here, there's some areas that don't have any kind of watershed on them, so you could get away on the south side more so, of course, than the north side, but you could get away with that 30,000 square feet for outside of the watershed and you have well and septic. And then it's dwindles down. If you have water and sewer provided somehow, some way, you can go down to 8,000 square feet.
Close to this house.
Well, so you've got Orange Elements water that comes over on the Orange County side, and they service quite a few neighborhoods, but right now they're only providing water, not sewer. Most municipalities are requiring people to annex to get their water or sewer. There's some occasions where they don't, but
It's 120 acres with 106 houses.
there you go, they're acre each.
That's the number that we was talking about.
You know, you lose about 10% just for improvements for roads, and then you get the rest lots.
And if math checks on that, Scott, I think you lose 12, that's 108, 106, there's 2 lots in there that just didn't fit. Road's a little bit wider, got some green space or something. But that's,
So if it was in a watershed, then it's already a minimum of 2 acre lots.
It's in the balance of the watershed is 1 acre, critical watershed is 2. That BOW you're seeing on those balance of watershed.
That's a one.
And there's critical, but I have to zoom in more to get to see that better. But yeah, so just to show you, parts of our county are already being controlled by other things, environmental constraints.
but there's nothing in place now to keep the planning board recommended to the commissioners that we put this progressive lot size scale in place to help monitor big growth.
Right, and that is totally up to you all. Commissioners get to decide what they want to do with it. When we did the land development plan a couple years ago, as that plan evolved, future growth, meaning smaller lot sizes go closer to the cities, right? And the more rural you get, the larger the lot size to fit with the character of what growth is supposed to look like. Cities are going to grow, but rural areas are trying to keep rural.
And some people, Rodney, would consider housing developments a high impact.
You're right, you're right. We want to put the 2,000-foot setback on each house. Scale it back.
So we'll pick that up next week. Is that what you're saying? You want to talk about that?
Is anything else we want to go around about that tonight?
I mean, I think we can discuss it on a meeting. I would rather stick to what the assignment was for this committee for now.
Okay.
And then see what everybody else says on Thursday.
Okay, so that class 3 HIDOs, which we address those 3 things tonight, and which
Make our recommendations.
2 recommendations. On there,
Oh, I got a few more than that.
right? 2,000 land spacing
Yes.
and smaller sawmills less than 10 acres. What else do we have?
I got it without permanent structures. And to look at chemical manufacturing and see how the state breaks that down and look at if the state breaks down sawmills at all.
Okay, all right, okay. So, get back to addressing residential, because the residential, like in what my thing for snow camp was based scaled on how many units were on a piece of property, right? And that was the land spacing thing. So you could actually, whatever, if it was 2 acre lots, but that was gonna have to be buffered by so that was that scale.
Yeah.
But you're talking about more of a scale of actual lot sizes.
Yeah.
Which kind of sort of the same, if you think about it, because we got a 100 acre lot. You can't put but 50 units, and that's using every bit of land on it, 2 acres. So that's cutting down 100 acres down to only 2 units, being able to fit them maximum. So we're kind of saying the same thing in a way.
That's right. But if you want to develop that whole 100 acres and you took it all the way out and went 5 acre lots, now you're down to 20.
The other problem is we still don't solve for the issue of I bought 100 acre lots. Now I own both. How many can I put on 200 acres that I now own?
40.
40 total. Unless you had the lines redrawn and said, now I got a 200 acre, we'll split it. See how you can get around.
But what I'm saying is if you put more than whatever the progressive number ends up being, houses on a piece of property. In other words, if you put 2 houses, well, you can put them on 2 acre lots, 4 acre, build 2 houses. But if you go to 8, then that comes into 3 acre, and go to 24 acres to put them 3 houses in. You go to 12, well, that takes 4 acres, so now you're up to 48 acres of land. But if you go over whatever we determine the magic number to be, it calls for 5 acres, then you got 100 acres, 5 acre piece, 20 houses. You got 200 acres, 5 acre piece, 40 houses. You're still not gonna be able to put in one of them magnanimous subdivisions and have one of the track builders come in here and do some of that lick 'em, stick 'em crap, bunch of shoddy stuff, and it cloud and rain Thursday afternoon and Friday morning, the whole thing is in shambles. Looked like a box of stick match has been thrown out there and kicked. That's what we're trying to do. Right? Because if we can get tuned up to discourage those track builders from wanting to come in here. They called me years ago, want me to come bush hog a lot in a subdivision. And she said, I need you to sign this vendor agreement. I'm not gonna call the name of it, but it's over in Saxby. I could have went over there and done everything I need to do in 45 minutes. She gave me 26 pages of stuff to read and sign. Probably not thinking that I'd read. But I went back over and sat down with her and I told her, I said, let's just have it cost $500 for the bush hog this lot. I'm coming to be with you. I said, I don't know if you've read this or not, but it says here that I've got to provide my own scaffolding to bush hog this lot. Oh, well, we didn't mean that. I said, we should put it in there. We didn't mean it. I don't know anybody stupid enough to put a bush hog up on a scaffold, but this one up here. The next line in it said that I was agreeing to provide this service in any subdivision that this company was building in at the time. I said, you want me to load my bush hog up and go to Georgia mow one lot? You think I'm gonna do it for $100? Probably don't have to say I didn't do the work for them. But I did make a point. I said, if you're gonna do this, you need to have a generic boilerplate, 1-page thing with a bunch of blanks in there. Rodney Treat agrees to bush hog a lot in X subdivision for X amount of money. And not have one thing. I don't need to have no paint thinner. I don't need no scaffolding. I'm not building that.
Okay, so with our, so I can address the subdivision stuff. Right? Next week, we get into the boat stuff with the full group. Is that what we're doing?
RVs. Mhm.
So that-
Your agendas will be coming out tomorrow.
We got to talk about anything else?
This committee, in theory, is over for now, right?
Oh, no.
So I think if
Assignment is
Natalia
complete.
Natalia gives you an answer that, yeah, we can have this in a week, do we meet again as a subcommittee next week? Do we meet in 2 weeks?
So next Thursday is
Give
your,
her a number.
We're not done though, right? We're not
You're not done.
yet, if we're not gonna recommend something to the full board yet, right?
I thought that's what we were doing.
I thought
well,
we
you've
was-
got a lot of questions
Whatever
left.
number they're comfortable with, between 15 and 2,000, is what we're gonna go with.
Right, so we've still got some questions on the sawmill definition, the chemical definition. So there's a couple things I need to bring back to y'all.
Right, as a subcommittee,
Mhm.
right, before we give it to the full planning board, and before it ever gets recommended to the county commissioners. Okay, that's what I'm.
So we can tentatively set that next week y'all meet again, if y'all want to meet before the planning board. And if for some reason I can't get an answer or get something cleared up with legal, then we can cancel that. Or y'all can say, no, let's just wait 2 weeks anyway. It's up to y'all.
If we can get some clarification on these things, we could meet at 6 o'clock next week.
Mhm.
Then go to the board and hopefully be done with the subcommittee.
If we can get our clarity, yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to get the subcommittee done as quick as we can.
Right.
Get it to the board. So we
So
can get
when-
it to the planning, or the county commissioners at some point in the time frame that they extended the moratorium.
But the
Right,
recommendation, would it need to be, I guess, a formal recommendation to the?
it
board,
would.
like
So once we
committee?
get through next week, and we know for sure what we want to move forward with, then we are going to have to draft text amendments for the legal to go through all of it at one time and tell us that that's okay. And normally we're meeting twice each month until we get done with some of this business. So we would have another meeting later in March that we could really have, unless something else comes up, just have this discussion to finish it off. And now commissioners have made it a policy that their public meetings, public hearing meetings, text amendments always require a public hearing by state law, would happen at the end of April. Moratorium expires the very last part of April. So it could slide in whatever text amendments right before that moratorium expires. I mean, like a week before, but right before.
So, I mean, if we can, if
They're
we
not
can give it to
interested.
the planning board next week, we need to meet, or we just need to meet next week.
We need to meet 6 o'clock next week if we have some answers.
Yeah, we could set that tonight, and then if for some reason we're just not good to get all the answers y'all need, I can let you know. We can cancel that. But we can hold your calendars for a minute.
That's been done since I started.
It's coming in a busy time.
They told us once a month, and I missed one Thursday. They missed the Thursday since
I
January.
ain't missed the third since January.
Well, that's what Eric said. He said, I'm on the director's board for the fire department, and I ain't been to a meeting one time this year. So it's been a great there Thursday night, either here or with the farm.
Ms. Camp,
Hmm.
thank you for sending me that stuff.
Oh, sure.
And, what's that to send, the,
Now,
It's still on
we got a
YouTube.
plan.
You don't need to pick up.
Okay.